That's where the problems begin. You're not listening to me. I'm telling you, board, that you are not following the rules. You're not enforcing the documents. You're not collecting the assessments the way you should be doing. All these things are what people are saying to the board of directors. So the first piece of advice I give you is to start making decisions. Okay. Don't forget, you are a board member. So your job is to what? To make sure you maintain that common areas, to make decisions, to enforce the rules. But the key thing is to understand your roles, responsibility, and where your authority comes from.
HOA Insights, common sense for common areas, exists to help all 2 million volunteer board members nationwide have the right information at the right time to make the right decisions for their future. This podcast is sponsored by 4 companies that care about board members: Association Insights and Marketplace, Association Reserves, Community Financials, and Kevin Davis Insurance Services. You'll find links to their websites and social media in the show notes.
Hi, I'm Robert Nordlund of Association Reserves.
And I'm Kevin Davis of Kevin Davis Insurance Services, and this is HOA Insights, where we promote common sense
for common areas. Well, welcome to episode number 45, where we'll be speaking with insurance expert and regular co-host Kevin Davis to talk about when to contact your insurance agent or attorney, and then what happens next after they've been contacted. Before we get going, though, I want to encourage everyone to check out episode number 44, where we caught up on some loose ends and told you more about one of our sponsors, Association Insights and Marketplace. That's a company you should know about because they are rolling out an association scoring system that has the potential to change the entire community association industry as we know it. And that's because, like we all have a personal FICO score that we try to maximize, their FIFO score measures the financial, physical, and operational behavior of the association. And the key here is it's a virtuous score for boards to pursue, designed to displace the destructive metric, the way so many boards chase the destructive metric of low monthly assessments. Well, if you don't know how to catch prior episodes, like last week's episode 44, you can listen from our podcast website, www.hoainsights.org, or watch the podcast from our YouTube channel, or you can be clever and subscribe to the podcast on any of the most popular podcast platforms. And as a reminder, upcoming episode number 47 on April 1, no fooling, will be presented as a live stream at 3 p.m. Pacific. And this will give you an opportunity to participate in a live podcast and ask questions live. In that episode, I'll be addressing the topic of reserve study legislation. Is your state next? So mark calendars for April 1, 3 p.m. Pacific, and click on the YouTube link in the show notes below to visit the live podcast YouTube page and click on the Notify Me button to make sure you get notified when the live podcast is about to begin. Well, as we regularly do, we're going to start this episode out with an audience question. So if you have a hot topic, a crazy story, or a question you'd like us to address in an upcoming episode, leave us a comment on YouTube, leave a voicemail at 805-203-3130, or send us an email at podcast@reservestudy.com. So Kevin, question of the day. Anne from New Jersey asked, as a board member, I'm being accused of a number of horrible things, mostly imagined. I think that's an interesting word, mostly imagined, on social media. Is this part of the job, and do I need to put up with this? I called our attorney, and he told me it was a personal problem, not an association problem, since the attacks were pointed at me, not the association. So, Kevin, what do we tell Anne?
Okay. When I read this, and first of all, poor Anne, this is happening all over. I mean, we get more and more people talking about how they've been mistreated serving on a not-for-profit board and on a condominium association.
Yeah, they're volunteering and they're getting attacked.
They're volunteering and getting attacked. Now, the good news right off the bat is this. What we do is have insurance coverage for boards of directors. We sell board liability coverage.
D&O insurance.
D&O insurance. So the first thing Anne said that I am a board member and being harassed. As a board member, she says. So once she says as a board member, guess what? She's acting in capacity as a board member. And it's not personal. So it becomes personal when she says, I'm being harassed and attacked because my next door neighbor doesn't like the way I'm, taking my dog out at 2:00 in the morning, or I'm making too much noise. That's personal. As soon as she said, as a board member, then all of a sudden, boom, my insurance hat gets on and goes, okay, she needs protected as a board member. So the first news here, Ann, is guess what? You are acting in capacity as a board member. So if something happens, you should have coverage either from an insurance point of view or an indemnification agreement, or the corporation itself should protect you. So you can take a deep breath there and say, okay, good. I don't have to worry about that. Now, one thing, we don't know all the details in it, but she said, as a board member, I am being harassed. Bingo.
Okay, so the attorney kind of misrepresented what she should do in that case, because even though she was personally being attacked, it was because she was a board member.
Exactly.
So it becomes an association issue.
It becomes, as long as she's acting in capacity as a board member.
Got it.
Okay? Because she could be the next door neighbor and being that next door neighbor who's a pain in the butt. But if she said, as a board member, I'm being attacked, boom, right off the bat, it's a corporate problem. And so the corporation has to protect her and has to back her up. The rest of the board members. So she should not be alone here. All the board collectively is representing, even though she may be the president or just a regular board member. It doesn't matter. The key thing is that she is acting as a board member as soon as she says as a board member.
Got it. We could go a lot of different directions. Okay. There's, what if she does nothing? What if she turns her social media off and, bang, 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 I hear nothing. She could do that. She could run to she did. She contacted her attorney. Good for her. We're going to give some better counsel here. You gave some better counsel. Talk to your insurance agent. It is a covered issue. Number 3, can she tolerate this? Should she tolerate this? When does it get so bad that you might even resign? What future actions?
Let's talk about, so what happens next? Here it is. Poor Ann is in there. She's being mistreated. This is the one piece of information you and I give all the time. Okay. And you're on the board of directors, and every Ann out there that's on the board of directors that's being mistreated, they've been being mistreated for a reason. It's a perceived reason. The perception is that you, as a board member, are not doing your job. You're not doing the things you should be doing as a board of directors. And on top of it, you're not listening to me. So that's where the problems begin. You're not listening to me. I'm telling you, board, that you are not following the rules. You're not enforcing the documents. You're not collecting the assessments the way you should be doing. All these things are what people are saying to the board of directors. So the first piece of advice I give you, Ann, is to start making decisions. Okay. Don't forget, you are a board member. So your job is to what? Maintain, right? To promote, maintain, reflect, to make sure you maintain that common areas, to make decisions, to enforce the rules. If you're not doing that, people will be upset with you. Even if you are doing it, people can be upset with you. But the key thing is to understand your roles, responsibility, and where your authority comes from. That's the number one thing. And all the ands of the world who are being attacked, if you understand your authority, if you're being attacked because you're not maintaining, you're not taking care of the visitors parking, or the trash cans have been out for more than 48 hours, or you're not having your elections in a timely manner, then what you got to do is make your informed decisions. Now, one thing we learned from episode 41 with George Nowak, and he said the most amazing thing, and that is, it's impossible for you to know all the rules and regulations that impacts community associations. It's impossible.
And to follow all those rules.
And to
perfectly.
Follow. Yeah. You can't do it. So it goes back to, if you make an informed decisions, when that day comes you're being sued, you have protection. But here's the problem. This is where all these ands of the world face, Robert, is that when you have knowledge of a decision, you have information that says that these are the way you enforce these rules, and you make a decision not to do it. What happens next is where all of your problems come into play. What happens next? So now you know you didn't enforce the rules properly. Person has a pet, is not allowed to have a pet. So you say, it's okay, it's a small pet, it's not a big deal. So now all of a sudden you bring in bigger pets, and now you want to enforce the rules, and guess what happens? They come back and say, wait a minute, you haven't enforced them. So now all of a sudden, you're being yelled at and screamed at as a board member because you didn't enforce the rules properly.
Okay, let me wind you back just a little bit. You said it very quickly, but you said that you're going to be attacked, you're going to be criticized if you do the right thing, and you're going to be attacked and criticized if you do the wrong thing. So since you are going to be criticized one way or the other, and that's one reason why I just have so much respect for the President of the United States, because there's millions of people who hate that person's guts every day for doing arguably as good as he or she can do. At a community association, this is a lot smaller pool of people. There's always going to be someone critical. So as long as there's going to be someone critical, at least have a strong place to stand on. Is that kind of what you're saying? Make an informed decision and at least stand on what's right.
Yes, because what happens is, again, you go back to now, you were a board member, and I said, you're a board member, you get sued. So all of a sudden, you did your job the way you did it. So what do you think the judge is going to do? And again, this goes back to what George Nowak said. Where was the harm? Where was the harm because he didn't take the trash cans out in 24 hours? How were you harmed because the homeowner left his car parked there extra? How were you harmed? Well, there's no damages. So nothing happened. But now, all of a sudden, let's say you didn't do your job the right way. Let's say you went after him purposely, said, okay, I don't like you because you're the one who's been attacking me, and found that the person that's been attacking her for the past several years now all of a sudden parked that car in visitors parking. So now Ann's going to go at and attack that person, call the tow truck immediately, get that car out of there, and now Ann gets her revenge.
Revenge, just that's a bad word to use when you're a board member.
Yeah.
Using
but
your power.
It happens all the time, though. And that's, again, we go back to saying the same thing. And you have a problem right now. You're being mistreated. If you do your job the correct way, if you make those informed decisions, and now that person comes after you and say, wait a minute, you don't have the authority to do it. And you go, yes, we do. Yes, it is. Yeah. It's here, right here in the documents. It's here. It says it loud and clear that you have to do this in 48 hours. If you don't do it in 48 hours, guess what? You're subject to fine.
Yeah. And then just like that person that's mad that they got their car towed and can say, we towed 7 vehicles last month for doing exactly what you did. It's not about you, Fred. It's about cars parked in the fire zone. And we just can't have cars parking in the fire zone.
And that's the thing that people lose track of. And they lose track of primarily because the world we live in, and you kind of nailed it. We talk about the President of the United States. We live in a world where we just don't like each other. We come into play, and it just think what a board does. A board makes decisions about where you live. They have to make sure that your roof is okay. They have to make sure the place is clean, the place is maintained, the rules are enforced, and you collect assessments. And guess what? Somebody there is not going to like the decisions the board is making. Somebody's not going to like it.
Yeah, in my world, fundamentally, we're counseling community associations to raise the budget. It's been an inflationary time that we live in, so raise your homeowner assessment rate. There's going to be people that are upset about that for doing exactly the right thing. And in your heart of hearts that you see the bill, the insurance went up, the management company rate went up, the landscaper went up, the person who cleans a pool went up, the reserve funding. You can't get behind on that. You have to raise the assessments, and you're going to get criticized for doing the right things. You're going to get criticized for doing the wrong things. You might as well do the right things.
And you got to do the right things in a timely manner. So in other words, if you raise anything involving money, people are not going to be happy about. If you raise assessments, special assessments, you fine, penalize, whatever it is, all you have to do is make sure you did one thing: follow your rules. If you want to raise if you have a special assessment, what does your rules say about having a special assessment? If it says you only can do 3%, then guess what? You can't do more than 3% unless you go before the board. The board goes before the people who live there and say, guess what? We need to raise it 10, 15% because of insurance, because of the amenity, because electric has gone up, because of the landscapers charging more money. So you can't say, guess what? We need 10% and we're only allowed to do 3%, but we're going to raise 10% anyway. We're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because what happens then, you're in violation of the covenants. Now, what does that mean, though? So now all of a sudden you get that board member, you get a unit owner saying, wait a minute, board, you don't have the authority to do that. Yeah, but we did it anyway because we need to do it. So what's that unit owner going to do? That unit owner going to go in and say, guess what? I'm not happy about it. And neither are my neighbors are happy about it. And so going back to that episode 41 when George Nowak talked about a derivative action. So now all of a sudden you have what's called a derivative action. We are all collectively representing, ourselves and suing you, having the action against you board members, because guess what? You want a $5,000 special assessment. There's 100 of us here in our association. So now there's a $500,000 action that we're going after you for. $500,000. Because guess what? What you should have done was to come to the board of directors. The board of directors came to the unit owner and say, this is what we need. We can't live with 3%. We need 10. And have it voted on and do it the right way. If you don't do it the right way, you're talking about right now, you're facing a $500,000 lawsuit.
Got it. Okay. Well, Kevin, we've talked so much about doing it the right way, having that be a strong platform to stand on as a board member, knowing your governing documents, knowing state law, having a pulse on the temperature of the community. And like George Nowak said, this is not a game of perfect. It is doing your best. But I want to get back to talking about what to do when you're accused. But before we do that, let's take a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Kevin Davis, the president of Kevin Davis Insurance Services. Our experienced team of underwriters will help you when you get that declination. We provide the voice of reason, someone who will stand by you. Our underwriters bring years of knowledge to our clients that can't be automated by technology or driven by price. As a proud ANWINS company, we bring true value to your community association clients. We are your community association insurance experts.
And we're back. Okay, Kevin, let's talk about what actually should happen. Let's say the board member has a defensible position. I did this because it was the right thing to do. I fired the landscaper, friendly old Joe, who's been serving our community for 12 years, because he was just missing too many weeks, or we raise the assessments because we have to. You did the right thing for the right reasons. How much do you need to tolerate all this criticism? When does it get to a point where it really is the right thing to do to contact your insurance agent and potentially elevate from just a little bit of peanut gallery on the side to something that is significant?
Here's the thing that we've been talking about is the hard part about being on the board of directors, okay? It's, first of all, when you're on the board of directors for a community association, it's unlike being on the board of directors of anything else. Because if you're on the board of directors of any other company, you're talking about financial loss. You're talking about how dare you invest in this operation, or how dare you not give me the money that I've earned. When the community association, you're there, and I call them emotional damages. I'm upset. You've hurt me. You haven't heard what I have said. You're not listening to me. So the damage are purely emotional. And that's what George Nowak was talking about. When you go from in front of a judge in some of these things, the judge will say, how were you harmed? And I was harmed because there are rules in this association. And all I want to do is make sure they do things correctly. That's all I want to do is make sure they do things correctly. And now you hear me, I'm emotionally attached to it. You've been on the board, Robert, for 30 years, and you still have not had an election in a timely manner. You still only have 5 board members, and it should be 9. I'm tired of it. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to have a judge to come in and do something about it. You were wrong, though, Robert, as a board of directors. You should have 7 board members. You should have things in timely manner. So what happens is this. I'm upset. Now, I contact my lawyer. My lawyer is going to do what? He wants to make money. He's saying, well, wait a minute, there's no harm there, so no big deal. But there's one thing that nobody ever talks about. It's called prevailing party fees. Prevailing party fees means this. If I'm a lawyer, I know the board did something wrong. They should have 7 board members and only have 5, and they're making decisions. Guess what? I'm going to sue that board, and I'm going to win all the amount of money that was spent. You were the board president, okay, of the association. I'm the unit owner who says, guess what? You have not enforced these rules in 30 years you've been on that board.
I have clear exposure.
Clear exposure because you have not done it.
Yeah.
Okay. You have 5 board members. You should have 7 board members or 9. Okay. You should have annual meetings. Okay. You haven't had them. Okay. So now all of a sudden I'm upset. Now the judge can say, how are you harmed? Okay. It's your job to do it correctly. So I'm upset with you. Now, what happens, I call my attorney up. My attorney going to say, off the bat there, there's no harm in there, so how am I going to make money? But then he's going to say, you didn't do your job correctly, Robert, because you didn't enforce the rules. It's clear as a bell. You should have 7 board members to make any decision. So every decision you made in the past year with 5 board members, guess what? It could be invalidated. So now all of a sudden, as a lawyer, I'm thinking that I can make a lot of money off this thing because they're prevailing attorney fees. So all the costs that I'm going to do to sue you, Robert, guess what, can come back to me because you were automatically wrong. You were automatically wrong off the bat because you should have done it the right way.
And that will come from the association's D&O or from am I being sued personally as a individual for acting incorrectly on the board?
No. What you're doing is you're acting in the best interest of the board. Okay. You didn't do a good job, but you did your job. You made decisions
as best I could.
No decision is a decision. No decision is a decision. Yeah.
We tried. We couldn't get anyone to run for the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did the best job we could do. So you put your carrier on notice. Your carrier says, we got your back. Okay. You made an informed decision. Your decision was, we can't have more than 7. We're in the South. We only have meetings, 3 times a year because everybody goes back to Chicago or New York. This is the way we've been operating for the past 30 years. We'd love to be able to do it better, but we can't. But in the meantime, that attorney is saying, I'm going to start writing up I'm going to make some money now because you haven't done this in 30 years. Every decision you guys made in the past couple of years is invalid because he knows he's collecting money off of it. And that's what creates a problem for these things. That's why it goes back to making that informed decision. Okay? Because you make that informed decision, now all of a sudden, again, how were you harmed? You weren't harmed at all in doing these things. You weren't harmed. There's no damage there. You weren't harmed, but you still end up costing $30,000, $40,000. Now, here comes the issue, though. Okay? Now, what if you go in there and say, oh, I didn't know, I didn't care, he's just full of, crap. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, he's a jerk. Yeah. We don't listen to him anyway.
He's a troublemaker. There you go. He's a troublemaker in the association.
Yeah. Names.
Now, what happens, you think, all of a sudden there? And that's what the problem comes into play. There are emotional damages here. Right now, if you go in there and you say, Judge, we did the best we can, the judge is going to say, just like George Nowak said, no harm, no foul. Just redo the board. Just redo the elections or whatever it is. Okay? And then all of a sudden, the attorney's not going to make a lot of money. But if you go in there and start saying that guy's a troublemaker in the association, now all of a sudden the lawyer is happy because now all of a sudden you impugning him. You have those reputational damages. You're making things up about him. You're saying bad things about him. Okay. So now all of a sudden that lawyer there is happy now because now he can sue you for damages. Because you actually accuse this person there of being incompetent. Now I'm walking through the community and people are looking at me because they say I'm the troublemaker and all I want to do is one thing. It's have you to enforce the rules uniformly.
I can imagine that's how that $30,000 of attorney's fees turns into a bigger problem. And then all of a sudden you get into, like you were talking about, $500,000 for the special assessment or the crazy $1 million damages that came from a minor misunderstanding or a minor misapplication of the way things are supposed to be.
Yeah. And that's the key let's go back to Ann, right? Ann, she's sitting there and she has to realize that people are yelling and screaming at her. Ann has that choice to be able to say, listen, all right, we've done a best job we can do. We're feeling great. We looked at it. We're our assessments are on. We're maintaining the association. We're enforcing all the rules to the best of our knowledge. Ann's pretty happy. Here's the key. Now, once they cross the line, that person who's yelling or the group, it might be 5 or 6 of them saying, and guess what? You're incompetent. You're stealing money. You're doing all these things wrong. You embezzled the reserves. So you got a new car out there. So I know you're taking the financials.
Oh, yeah.
That's when that line's been crossed.
Yeah. Okay. Where there's an accusation that is going to damage her and she can say, this has been more than just sticks and stones can break my bones or just will never hurt me, right?
Yeah.
That is undermining. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of thing that will make her think, I want to quit. I want to sell. I want to get the heck out of here. And that's a problem.
And let's talk about this. Let's talk about the line. But here's where the line is crossed. As soon as you say I committed a crime, you cross the line. That's it. That's the line you cross. That means you accuse me of something I didn't do. Number 2, you said I have some kind of infectious disease. You say, oh, this guy caught COVID and he's on the board and he's making all these decisions based on the fact that he caught COVID.
Okay.
I'm incompetent.
I'm writing this down. Okay. Cross the line with committing a crime, infectious disease, incompetence.
And here's the one that happens all too often. I had improper sex.
Kevin, it's an amazing world that you live in. In the preserve save business, it's always asphalt and roofing and carpet. It's not improper sex.
But about the perfect example, what's happened in Georgia with that case in Georgia. The whole thing with conflict of interest with that lady, with the district attorney who wants to sue the whole Trump organization. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's about sex.
A very good point.
You had improper sexual relationship. Okay. And they go to court from that. You damaged. I've been damaged out there. You accuse me of this here. It's not about me. It's about you. No. You had improper sexual relationship. If I ever accuse you, Robert, and I know you very well, if I ever accuse you of having an inappropriate relationship with the landscaper, right?
No.
Now all of a sudden, that's a line that you don't want to hear. That's that line where now all of a sudden you're going after me.
Yeah, okay? that would damage our friendship.
But that's that line. If you cross any of those lines right there, that's it. You have a right. You've been damaged. You have been damaged. Okay. Now you got to make sure they're not true though.
Yeah.
Again, that's what happened to her in Georgia. And it may have been true that they might have had an affair. So you got to be careful. You can't yell and scream at somebody and say, "How dare you say this about me?" And all of a sudden you did embezzle the money to buy that new car.
Yeah. Okay. Because when Anne wrote her question, she said, I'm being accused of horrible things, mostly imagined. Okay. Now, if we're talking about, George made the point that perfect is very difficult to do, if not impossible to do. So and I do it every month, I collect my business receipts and I have most of them. But let's say that you as a board member went to your local CAI luncheon meeting and it cost you $30 for the luncheon meeting, and you don't have a receipt for that. That's an example of imperfection, and someone could accuse you of being reimbursed $30 for something that you don't have a receipt for. Is that the kind of damage that you want to worry about, or is that the kind of imperfection that we should tolerate and let the temperature come down?
That's a good question. And that's what I always say. You have to be realistic about these things. When I told you was having an affair with somebody, you were upset. I mean, you could see it visibly in your face that it bothered you. Now, if I said that, guess what? I saw you talking to somebody. I can't believe you're such a jerk. And wait a minute, that roofer is charging a lot more money than the roofer I thought you should charge. That means you're getting a kickback, right? Yeah. No, I'm not getting a kickback.
Yeah, they're a better roofer.
You know that line's been crossed when you said, no, I know it. I went to your bank account and I saw you buy the new car and I saw it. Now all of a sudden you feel you've been damaged. That's the difference. You feel it. Now, what happens is there's a line there that you got to feel in yourself where I'm just doing my job, guys. And I'm being consistent and I'm being uniform. I'm forcing documents in a uniform way. It's not going to bother me if you call me, if you say, guess what? I'm looking at your receipts and they don't match up properly. Guess what? I'm consistent every single day. I'm doing this thing the same way. Like you said, every 30 days you go through your accounts to find out and you do your reconciliation. We do it also. We may have made a mistake. We made a mistake. It's okay to make a mistake. Yeah. It's okay we made a mistake in there. Because guess what happens? You make a mistake. That's why you have insurance. If you get sued because you made a mistake, you got insurance and you're not going to worry about it. So I'm never going to worry about it at all until it gets to a point in time where that person crossed the line on me as a board member and then I have to go after them. Or B, I may have done something incorrectly.
Significantly.
That I didn't apologize for. In other words, if you did something that you didn't follow the rules, let's say that you have 7 board members, you only have 6 because Ann resigned. You're going to try to replace that person. And then you may not get another person, but you feel that you made a difference by trying, as opposed to saying, listen, Ann's gone, we're happy, 6 people, we're going to be a better board without her. And that's the difference. When you start to make these assumptions, and not for the betterment of the association. I mean, your job as a board member to act in with the best interest of the association. The best interest association is to replace Ann if she resigns. Not to say, glad Ann's gone, now we get back to regular business. We're going to do more with 6 of us than we ever could do with 7, 8, or 9. That's the difference between being right and being wrong. Because when you're wrong, it just adds up. This is the first of many wrong things you will be doing.
I like that. When you're wrong, it adds up. And I wrote down in the best interest of the association and this body of evidence. If over the course of the year I've missed 2 receipts, our accountant is not going to sweat it. They know that with all the business travel I do, that's pretty darn good compliance. And similarly, as a board member, it's not going to be perfect. You have some exposure, but the body of evidence supports you. You're trying hard. You're doing it in the best interest of the association, and you're consistent. Can we add communicating well to that also?
Yeah. It's all about communicating. If I'm not following rules because I can't, because nobody wants to volunteer to be on the board, or guess what? Time was off because of the holidays, and instead of having it in 10 days, we had it in 20 days. We're going to say, we're sorry. This is the best we can do under circumstances. We can either accept this new slate of board members, or we can have the election all over again. What do you think is right? And then we can make decisions based on that. And guess what? We're okay because we acted what's in the best interest of the association. As long as you act in the best interest association, you're taking a $30,000 loss, which is still a lot of money. It'd be 10, 15, and not the $250,000, $500,000 loss. We can be, as soon as I say, guess what? He's the troublemaker in that association. He always does that.
That's the escalation that we want to avoid.
That's the escalation you want to avoid.
Got it. Okay. I like that. I like the conversation where I'm writing a bunch of notes down and learning more myself. Well, Kevin, it's always great talking to you. Any closing thoughts to add at this time?
Make an informed decision is the most important thing you can do, because you can hold your head up high in an association. You're not going to know all the answers, but just do the best job you can. And then make sure you have an adequate insurance policy. Talk to your insurance agent. If this happens, do I have coverage? Because if they say you should have coverage, or based on these things, you're going to feel good about what you're doing because you're making that informed decision.
I like that. Well, we hope you learned some HOA insights from our discussion today that helps you bring common sense to your common area. We look forward to having you join us for another great episode next week.
You've been listening to HOA Insights, common sense for common areas. You can listen to the show on our podcast website, hoainsights.org, or subscribe on any of the most popular podcast platforms. You can also watch the show on our YouTube channel. Check the show notes for helpful links. If you like the show and want to support the work we do, you can do so in a number of ways. The most important thing that you can do is engage in the conversation. Leave a question in the comment section on our YouTube videos. You can also email your questions or voice memos to podcast@reservestudy.com, or leave us a voicemail at 805-203-3130. If you gain any insights from the show, please do us a huge favor by sharing the show with other board members that you know. You can also support us by supporting the brands that support this program. Please remember that the views and opinions expressed by the podcast do not constitute legal advice. You'll want to consult your own legal counsel before making any important decisions. Finally, this podcast was expertly mixed and mastered by Stokelight Video and Marketing. With Stokelight on your team, you'll reach more customers with marketing expertise that inspires action. See the show notes to connect with Stokelight.